In this episode, we're going to be making Chinese dumplings. This is one of my favorite street foods. I'm going to be using 2 different fillings to fill the dumplings. I'm going to be making a plant-based tofu and shiitake mushroom, which is so delicious. And the second filling is going to be a pork and cabbage, the classic. I'm going to be also making a dumpling dressing to go alongside this, which is mind-blowing, it's so good. And I'm also going to be making the dumpling wrappers. These are so easy to make. And if you've ever made pasta before, why not level it up and make some dumplings? Finally, I'm going to be topping these dumplings off with a few pickled shiitake mushrooms. Let's get cooking. First up, we need to make the dumpling wrappers. So the actual dough that's going to fill these amazing dumplings. You can actually buy the wrappers in supermarkets. However, in this recipe, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to make your own at home, and they're not that hard. First up, all you need to do is pop on your kettle. So I'm just going to do that now. Then we're going to be using plain flour. Whack that into a bowl. It's about 150 grams with a pinch of salt, chef's pinch. So we're just going to add in the freshly boiled water. That's going to be 90 grams of water. Just give it a little mix to incorporate everything. And be careful because it's going to be a little bit hot. So if you want to wait for a little bit, then that's fine. But if you've got asbestos hands, then let's get kneading. We're gonna give that a knead for about 5 minutes. It's gonna get smooth quite quickly, and you're gonna leave that on the side to just relax. That's gonna allow the gluten to just like fully relax, and you're gonna get it all like smooth. And that's the trick to getting a really smooth dumpling dough. Okay. Pick up all the bits. So we're just gonna knead this until it's super, super smooth. Get right into it. It's gonna be a bit of a workout, but it's all good. So then you're gonna use the heel of your hand to really like knead into that dough. Really get into that. You're gonna pull it, stretch it. You can even give it a bit of a tear and just like start tearing the dough. That like works the gluten as well. We're using plain flour here, so it's got a low gluten content. So you need to really work the dough to give it that bouncy texture. Give it a bit of a knead. You can already see it coming together. Turned from a shaggy mess into a beautiful, smooth dough. So you can see that's already beautifully smooth, and we're just going to allow that to rest, covered for about 10 minutes. Now we need to make the filling. I'm going to be making 2 different fillings. So one is going to be a plant-based option, which is going to be silken tofu and shiitake mushrooms. I love shiitake mushrooms. They've got the best flavor. They're the king of the mushrooms. And then I'm also going to be making a pork and cabbage. This is a traditional filling, and sometimes traditional is just the best. It's so good. First up, we're going to need to salt our cabbage. I'm using Napa cabbage here. Sometimes if you're looking in supermarkets, this could also be called Chinese leaf cabbage. And it's really important to salt the cabbage because it draws out the moisture out of the cabbage before putting it into the filling. Otherwise, you're gonna get a really wet filling, and you don't want that. So we're going to salt the cabbage and leave it on the side for about 10 minutes. Make sure you really squish that salt in there. Give it a good crunch. Use your arm and your shoulder, and that's going to draw out the moisture of the cabbage, and you're going to get this pool of water, salty water, which we're not going to use, and just leave that on the side for about 10 minutes. Next, we need to cook our shiitake mushrooms for the plant-based filling. So I've got some sesame oil, and I've got a hot wok. And put the oil around the outside of the wok. Give it a good zhuzh. And then we're going to add our shiitake mushrooms directly to the pan with a pinch of salt. Turn up the heat a bit. and give that a little fry off for about 5 minutes on a really high heat. You want that caramelization just on the outside of the mushrooms, so keep them moving. If you don't have a wok, you can always use a frying pan. To make the plant-based filling, we're gonna take our shiitake mushrooms that we've just caramelized off nicely in the pan, whack that straight in a bowl, and then we're gonna add in our silken tofu. This is gonna like bind everything together, so you really wanna like mush it up. Just like half a block of tofu. Give that a good old mush. Give that a bit of a mix, and then we're gonna add in all our seasonings. So about a teaspoon of ginger and garlic, a pinch of white pepper. You've got to be really careful with this because it is quite strong, and if you can't get your hands on white pepper, go with black pepper, it's absolutely fine. And then about a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of soy. Then a good old pinch of spring onions. Give it a bit of a mix, and then that's your plant-based filling done. We're gonna make our meat filling. This is our pork and cabbage filling. After your cabbage has been sitting for about 10 minutes, you wanna squeeze out all the water. Ooh. You can really like squeeze it out. You wanna get all that liquid out. And then whack that straight in the bowl. We're not gonna be adding any more salt to this because the cabbage has already been salting. So whack in your pork. I'm putting in about 200 grams. And then a teaspoon of ginger. A teaspoon of garlic. And then spring onions. Ooh. I'm gonna dry my hands. Another pinch of white pepper, and then 2 teaspoons of sugar. As well as your sesame oil. Give that a bit of a mix. It can all come together. I'd get your hand involved, but if you're a bit squeamish, go for a spoon. I won't judge. Bring that all together. And that is looking and smelling excellent. Perfect. That can just sit on the side, and we're gonna make our wrappers. Now we need to make the dumpling wrappers. When you take the dough out of the bowl, you'll see it's become really smooth. It's like really malleable. The gluten's relaxed. It's all having a good time. And I'm gonna be showing you 2 different methods of rolling out the wrappers. One is gonna be a bit of a cheat, but it's my favorite method, to use the pasta machine. Not traditional, but an excellent method. And the other one is going to be rolling it out with a rolling pin, which can be a little bit more tricky, but you've got your intermediate and advanced method. Right, so to do this, we're gonna chop the dough in half. We'll leave this one for the advanced method over here. And we can start to work the dough through the pasta machine. I've got a bit of corn flour here. This is gonna stop the dough sticking to anything. So it's really useful rather than using flour. And it's a similar method to rolling out pasta. So if you've ever rolled out pasta before, and if you have a pasta machine, you probably have rolled out pasta. So the dough's on the highest setting at the moment. Mine's a 0, and I'm gonna put this through a couple of times, and then we're just gonna go down and down in the numbers until it gets to about a 5 or a 6. You want about a medium thickness to the dough. Just gonna keep rolling this, and you can see the strength of the dough. This is because we allowed it to rest. And just keep going. And you don't want to go too thin. If you go too thin, it can actually break in the pan, and you want that a little bit of chew to the wrapper. Okay, perfect. I can give it a little dusty. You can give it a dust with corn flour, and then put it down, make some space. Give it a bit of a dust, and then I've got a little ring cutter. I'm just going to cut up some circles of dough. And we're just going to leave those to sit on the side, and we're going to fill those in a minute. So for our second method, we can take the dough out, and you want to roll it into a little sausage shape, and we can just do small cuts of the dough. I find these dough cutters really useful for this. I'm just going to pop those into pieces, and you can roll them into small balls. Just roll them a bit. If you want to be super professional, then you can weigh them out, but like, I don't have the time for that. And I'm just rolling it with the heel of my hand. So it's like right in this part where you just put the dough in between, and you're just rolling it to get a little ball. Together. Okay. This one looks fine. That can go there. Cool. The second method of making the wrappers requires a lot less equipment, but requires a bit more skill. You want to take your ball and just flatten it out with your hand, and then take a rolling pin. You can use any sort of rolling pin, or a bottle of wine, or any other thing round. And you just want to roll it out to as thin as possible that you can. We're going to keep rolling it and moving it. It's really important to move it, otherwise it's going to stick. And then, once it's rolled out a bit, you want to make the outside slightly thinner than the middle. So we're just gonna roll it out, and this is gonna be key to when we're actually folding the dumplings later. You can place that on the side and roll out the rest. So we're gonna roll out the wrappers by flattening it with the base of your hand, and then take a rolling pin or anything round, wine bottle or olive oil bottle or anything, and we're just going to roll out the wrapper. You want to keep the dough moving, because otherwise it can stick to the surface, and if it does get a little bit sticky, get your corn flour back and give it a little dust, and then we're going to roll it out to as thin as you can. We're going to be rolling it out to about 10 centimeters. And just keep rolling it. Then once it's paper thin, you can roll out the edges so they're thinner than the middle. So I'm just going to keep moving it. This is going to be important when we're actually wrapping the dumpling. Once that's rolled, you can place it on your tray ready for filling. I'm just going to carry on and roll the rest of these dumpling wrappers. we're gonna fill our wrappers now with our 2 different fillings. So for the plant-based filling, you're gonna take about a tablespoon, whack it in the middle of the dumpling wrapper. And then with your 2 fingers, you need a little bowl of water and just lightly wet the outside of the wrapper. Dry your hand a bit, give a little shake of rooski on the floor, and then pinch it together in the middle. And then you're gonna make 6 folds. Bring each side on the same side to the middle. And you're gonna keep folding 1 on each side until you get a little crescent shape, and you can bring that together. So you get a little shell crescent shape to your dumpling, and that can just sit on the side just before we cook it. I'm gonna do a couple more of these. So we're gonna take a tablespoon of pork mince filling, whack it in the middle of the dumpling wrapper, and then you're gonna dip your fingers into a little bit of water and wet the outside, so just the outside of half the dumpling wrapper. Then we're gonna bring the dumpling together into a half moon. Pinch it, and then bring each side together in 6 folds, alternating each side, and then keep pinching it together in the middle until it becomes a crescent moon. And you're always gonna fold on the same side. And then push the edge together and give it a little squidge, and it's going to be a beautiful little shell crescent shape. That can just sit on the side until we're ready to cook it. So these dumplings are ready to cook. We've got a pan on about a medium heat. You're gonna add some sesame oil directly to the pan, and we're gonna place our dumplings straight into the pan. You wanna hear that sizzle. So we're just gonna crisp up these dumplings for about 2 to 3 minutes. In the meantime, we're gonna make the sauce. For the sauce, it's super simple, but I'm gonna be using some really special ingredients. I've got some Chinese black vinegar, which is it's my favorite vinegar. It's malty, it's not too acidic, and it's just perfect to make dumpling vinegar. However, if you can't get your hands on that, don't worry, just use some rice wine vinegar. It'll work just as good. The sauce is going to be Chinese black vinegar. I'm gonna add that in. And then some sugar, a little bit of soy, and I've got some julienne ginger. And give that a bit of a stir to make sure that sugar is fully dissolved, and then we are good to serve. So now that we made our dipping sauce, I'm just gonna check these dumplings and make sure that it's got a crispy base. I mean, look at that. That is beaut. Pop that back in, and you're gonna add the water to the pan. It can spit out at you if your pan's too hot, so just be careful at that. Stick the lid on, and it's gonna steam for about 7 to 10 minutes on a medium heat until the filling is fully cooked and the dumplings are ready to serve. The dumplings are nearly ready, and I'm just going to whip up a little pickled mushroom to have as a garnish. So all you're going to need to do is add a bit of sesame oil to the pan, add in your mushrooms, give them a little fry, add a pinch of salt, and then add in rice wine vinegar. It's gonna boil up. You can just remove that and place that into a bowl, ready to serve. and the dumplings are ready to eat. I'm gonna plate these up now.